If you got a zero, you need to have a Corsair. It's time to get assembling. Welcome everybody back to Just Plain Crazy. I'm Brennan. Thanks for joining me again yet for another episode down in the lair. And that's exactly right. Available over at Gator-Rc. This is the Seagull's Model Giant Scale Corsair 87-inch. Now this is a limited edition plane, so I'm not sure how long you're going to be able to get these or find these, but I can tell you scarf one up. Designed for a 60cc, we're throwing in a Sato 3-cylinder Radial in this thing. Of course, it's got to be for the sound, right? But if this thing flies anywhere close to what the Zero does, this is a home run all day long. So it sat around long enough. We got a bunch of other stuff finished. Time to dig into this and get started. Step number one in the process. This is going to be obviously a covered airplane. So we put down mat to protect it. Anything, little pieces of wood chips, anything like that that you put pressure on will ruin covering pretty quickly. So we like to put down this protective foam stuff. Now, because it's also covering and it comes from overseas, humidity's different, wood shrinks, covering moves around, all of those types of things, you get wrinkles. So if you can see, hopefully those right there, we got to get all those out before we get started. Now these have a lot of open wing bays, but there is a lot of sheeted area right there. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the heating gun to it. All right, the hair dryer, if you will. And we're going to pull all those wrinkles out. And then I am going to use my heating iron and I am going to literally just bake that covering right into the wood so that way it doesn't want to pop up and wrinkle on me. Because if we choose to weather it and things like that, we don't want that getting all junked up looking because we have wrinkled covering. So spend the time now. Let's get the wrinkles out of the covering, step one. And then we're going to work on putting in our lights. And those are uni lights as always. So down in the description below is where you'll find a list of the things going in this plane. Let's get going. All right, now we're going to throw the control horns in. Remember to take sandpaper and rough those up. I also drill either one or two small holes in there. You don't want them to look like that. We're going to mask off around that surface and then place these in. The ideal situation would always be, again, to have the hole right on the hinge line, so that way it's the same amount of movement, whether you're pulling or pushing on that control surface, and that will always give you the most neutral feel on your control stick, that it's the same movement in either way. So sometimes we use lasers, but these are already attached hinges, so we're going to have to just kind of eyeball where all that stuff is. But anyway, we're going to epoxy those in. The longer of the epoxy you use, the more it will soak in and give you a little bit more strength. So we're going to go ahead and pick out an epoxy, and we're going to tape this off, and we're going to get rolling. All right, here we go. Check this out. So on this project, again, is my last one. I've really developed a liking for their products, but Starbond, we're using just some 5-minute epoxy on this. Again, you can use 15, 30, you can use thick, whatever you want. The longer it sits in there, usually the stronger it is, but this stuff is made to resist vibrations, and it's clear, and there's a lot of good properties for this stuff. But here's one of the easiest ways. It comes, if you buy their kit, comes with this little tray in here. I mix mine this way. You can do it whatever way you want to, but I like being accurate. I'll put that on there, and we'll tear that, so that's at 0. And then we're going to just go ahead and mix ourselves up some 2 parts. So whatever it is that you want to put in here, squeeze in an amount. All right, so we got 2 grams of this part, and now we'll just put in an equal amount here. All right, total of 4 grams in there. They also give you this little mixing stick, which is nice because you don't have to worry about always replacing it. You can snap the mixed epoxy right out of this thing. and clean off the little mixing stick too, so you can reuse these little things. If you want to use, sometimes I use those little pill cups. Those work fine as well, but you can really clean this out if you wanted to. All right, so now we're going to take this and we're going to apply it to our horns and fill in our surfaces. All right, now we're going to go ahead and we're going to get our servos installed for the ailerons. Don't mix up the way those doors go on. I've already made the extensions. As much as I don't want to do this, it seems like for now it would be easier to have a connection here and then another connection in the center wing, but we'll see. So for now, I just put a lead on there. I could fish it out later. Because there's so many servos going to go into this plane, I'm not going to do anything with my arms right now. I will worry about arms and linkage later. All right, for the ailerons, I've decided to use the 505 HV high voltage servos. These are Pro Modeler servos. I use Pro Modelers in a lot of my projects. I really like them. I think they're pretty cost effective, although I do have to say, again, I've used King Max servos in other projects, and for the price you can't beat those either. Those you can find at Gator-Rc, these you find through Pro Modeler, but some of the new King Max servos I really like. With that being said, that's mounted in there. You could see that we're centered, which is great. Now these tabs that are all in here, number one, sometimes you have issues where they break loose of the sheeting, or you put screws in there and they break out. One of the best things you could do is pre-run your screws through it, take them out, and then soak that thing full of CAs. For our CA, again, I'm using Starbond. I've been using this on all my projects. It works great. And the other thing you have is this little cap cleaner or cap plug. But I really like all the pipettes they give you with their glue. And the stuff always seems to work really well. It's like it's fresh. And freshness matters. So just be careful when you put in CA on that wood. Try not to drip it on the covering, and try not to put so much on that it drips through on the other side, because it will burn the top of the covering and then it looks like trash. So you do have to be careful with drippers, because some CAs, especially if you use accelerator, they drip through there and they're going to leave burn marks, and it's kind of really crappy. So anyway, let's get this thing installed and we're going to do the other one. Now we're going to install the inboard flap servos. And one of the things would probably be the best choice here is to make sure that all four of your servos, the two inboard and the two outboard, although they're not connected, that you use the same one so all the speed's the same. Your outside wing will only connect to this one. Now these may need to be filed down. I just use a regular file. Now again, all the linkage I'm kind of preserving for later. I don't really plan on doing any of the linkage until I really have to. I'd rather get everything run, because then we also have to get everything hooked up to the receiver. In this case, we're going to be using an ArSmoothFlite gyro battery backup system, and it's going to make coordinating all of these all of these flap servos really easy. I do like the ArSmoothFlite dual redundancy and receivers. You could use 900 megahertz in dual redundancy. It has the gyro. It has the ability to split channels for you. So the battery backups, there's nothing about it I don't like. But anyway, let's flip it over. Let's get to the next step. We're going to get the servos installed for the gear doors. Now, I'm going to be using, again, Pro Modelers. We're going to use 180 inch-ounce torque servos for here. Again, these are high voltage servos. And I'm going to show you how I put the grommets in. For those of you that have watched my build videos before, I've shown this a lot of times, but I share stuff like this video to video only because you don't know, maybe this is your first one, you haven't seen the other one. So the grommets go with the little shoulder, the little flange down. I use one of these drill bits. Works really well. And if you always fight with this, dexterity, vision, whatever, just take this thing and wiggle, wiggle. Makes it super easy. There you go. So again, we're going to take this thing, not that one, it's the wrong size. Let's go ahead and run these down through those ply holes. All right, so we have the gear door servos done. Now we're going to go ahead and install these little 90 degrees down on the inside. They already have the tubes for the wires run. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start on this side. We're going to put, if you could see that little bushing, the bushing goes from the back side, and then this piece is going to have a button head to it. This will slide through there, and then that's going to thread into a blind nut. And so that these don't come loose, since we can't get nuts on the back side of those, we're going to put some blue Loctite on there. All right, so check it out. I cannot get those bolts to start. I've tried grinding the end of it to a point and getting them to start, and they will not. So those blind nuts are full of epoxy. So with that being said, that's all great. They're not going to come out, but in the same sense, you also can't get nothing to start. And if there's one lesson I can tell you from the school of hard knocks that I've learned, if you cannot get something to go in a blind nut, do not force it. So with that being said, what do, Brendan? Well, get yourself a tap, figure out what you got to do to get that tap rolling in there, and tap out the blind nut. It will take so little effort. As you could see here, we're just working this one through. I thought it was paint. It is definitely not paint. Those things are full of glue, epoxy, whatever it is that they're using, but it ain't gonna go. So with that being said, unless you want to rip them blind nuts out or break off these wooden ears, get yourself a tap. Everybody should have a 3mm tap, and make sure you tap these things out so that way we don't have issues. And take your time, because I guarantee that wing tube being back here and stuff, life will absolutely suck if you break that stuff off. Take your time, tap these out. That, my friends, is your public service announcement for the day. All right, when you go to put these in, this is what you need. You need this arm. You need that little rod in there like that. You need this little bushing on the back side. We're going to use a 3mm here. Then through there. And then we're going to make sure we put some Loctite on that bad boy. Now we're finally going to be able to get this thing installed. And you have to make sure you use the right bolts there, because you don't want to run that bolt right in through your wing tube. Okay? So now let's do the other side. All right, now that we have that linkage in there, again, I don't know that any of this is finalized, so I don't think it matters what hole, this or that. We'll deal with all of that later as we figure this out. But for now, we got to go ahead and find those tubes, and we're going to slide these sleeves, or find the sleeves and slide these rods in through them. And it does show in the book that these are clipping in to the very bottom rod right next to where that one is. So this may have been much easier to do beforehand. So I'll try and make a note to go back. All right, the next section we're going to install the gear plates. If you're going to use Robart gear, they give you these plates to use. Otherwise, I'm using the gear that comes with the Seagulls kit, and we have these plates to put in. Now, they really don't give you any directions to that, but it's pretty easy to figure out. We're going to take these things, we're going to put 2 4x15 screws in like this. We are going to Loctite these things in there, and if I had to guess, clearances in there are going to be pretty tight, so we're probably going to need an Allen wrench. So we'll slide this in, and let's hope we don't have any of the issues that we had with the other blind nuts, because it's going to be a heck of a lot harder to get that tap in these spots. So far, so good. I just start them with the ball driver, get them in there, get them snugged up. And then from there, we can go ahead and get them tightened up with the Allen wrench. Now, it's time to install the retracts. The retracts are going to go with this ledge facing inboard. So as you lay these things in here, they will go like that. And then we want to, we're going to apply some Loctite on these because we don't want these to come loose. And I typically will use nicer looking screws and hardware here, but A, this stuff's all behind the doors, and B, I don't have anything this length that is going to stay really low like these button heads will. And the reason we need to stay low is because of the gear trim that we're going to be placing above it is going to need to sit right on top of here. So we got to make sure that these stay down. But anyway, this piece in, let's get this tightened up. When you go ahead and install this spacer for that front door, this is just a piece of wire. This will sit here, and then the wire starts on one side and will wrap around to the other, and you insert grub screws and you cut these off. Leave this somewhat loose so this slides pretty easy, because this whole gear door assembly needs to move. So if this thing can slide a little bit, that's going to be ideal. Retract is mounted in. Now you want to find your base plate. The base plates are curved, and again we mounted the retract with that shoulder facing inboard, right? That means that now you've knocked out that little piece. Now you also see how that's curved like that. That's curved because it has to sit on the wing saddle the correct way. So as the wing is curved, you need to make sure that that sits in there correctly. This piece is going to lay into there. Now I did figure out that I'm going to have to round those edges, so that way you can install this, because when you go to put this on, you don't want the end of this to be past this piece, because these gear doors have to sit in here as well. So that's how that has to go. We're going to pre-drill all of those, and then we're going to put the hardware in. We do need to notch out on these. Looks like maybe not so much on this side, but definitely on this side we're going to have to notch out what I marked in red. And you're going to get your hinge installed right there. That hinge will look like that. We'll talk about that more in a minute. And then we knocked out these pieces again out of this base plate, so those come out. Now you'll see these gear doors, once you have this piece put on, these gear doors are notched. So you're going to have to cut that piece out and this piece in order to get this installed. Now I wound up using the shorter screws. I did not use the screws they gave me. They are this cheaper screw material, and those things Phillips wise just strip. This I'm using a bigger, because that hinge is going to go into here. That is a bigger screw, and they're very short, so I can nip the back and CA it, so I don't have to worry about that coming out. But again, they're bowed. Make sure that it follows the contour of the wing. I use different hardware all the way around, and then these for the hinge, I'm going to use different pieces as well. So let's get those trimmed out. So I'm going to put this in a different part. This is later. You're going to see it earlier. Couple things that, and the reason I'm going to put it in this section, we want to make sure that the bolt and your washer on these front panels goes through the little hole below the slot. It's hard to see, but that's where you want to put that. Put some Loctite on it so it doesn't move around, and we just hinge it from the outside into this bracket. And the reason I'm going to move this forward in the video, the wire that we initially put around here, I found kept binding up at times, and it would slow the retract down. So what I've opted to do is put springs in here, and then that way the spring being more round would make it less likely to bind up. That spring now will fall back into this area, and we shouldn't have any issues with it. Keep in mind the other thing here that you're going to have to watch, this gear is made to collapse, right? And there's no spacing here. So although this fits great into those notch outs, that wheel's going to hit if you have a hard landing and break these right off. So we're going to have to trim a good bit of this out yet. This is not going to work, because the only other thing that you could potentially do is try and space your wheels out even more, which is going to lift them even more, and it's just not going to be a great fit. So best thing to do is going to be to trim and then leave it. Yes, it's going to have a little opening in there. Now we're going to go ahead and install the tire assembly on there. We need to get a wheel collar. No grub screw is needed. That goes on the inside. You could see there's that, no grub screw. There's the flat part. I made a red mark right there so I could see it from the back side. And we're going to go ahead and slide that through, and I'm going to leave my mark up at 12 o'clock. And we're going to take out the grub screw that's right here on the top. Now, one of the things that sucks really, really bad when working on planes, building planes, is having, like when you go to fly it, having a retract fall off. So all the grub screws, I go ahead and I put canopy glue on them. And some people say, oh, why not use Loctite? Well, this gets rubbery, so it doesn't want to come loose. It loosens up really easily with just a little bit of heat. But the big thing is that it seems to be less hard on the aluminum threads than the blue Loctite. So I prefer on all grub screws, I prefer canopy glue. So we're going to put that down in. And I put this on all my retract hardware, so that way I don't ever have a leg fall off in flight. All right, very nice. I like that. Let's do a final adjustment on some of the doors and stuff, and we should be good. For your gear doors, the way that the gear doors go on is you're going to have a spot for your horns. And obviously this is going to have a certain direction that they have to go in there, but you want the hinges to be inboard and outboard, but you need the horns up towards the front with the linkage. So this is what this side's going to look like there. And then we're going to wind up installing the horns and the hinges. So these are left doors, and if you want to, you can even mark them whatever. We can mark an L and an L so we know. And the other two are the right ones. Hinges will be pretty straightforward. They're going to go into these blocks in here and on there. For now, though, don't forget, we're going to rough up this surface on the inside. And we're also going to rough up and take the paint off of there. If you don't do that, guarantee this stuff ain't going to hold. So that's what this is going to look like if this is your left door that is in. So that triangle, the longer part goes down, the shorter part of the triangle goes away from the wing. All right, so check this out. These are the screws they want you to use. If you come in through the backside and screw into this, this is some really nice kind of bent, warped wood material. It's really funky. It's different. But anyway, these screws, they'll stick through. Even if you cut them off, they'll grab you, or they're going to cut covering somewhere, I'll guarantee it. So I got some of these just tapered M2 by 8 little screws. And yeah, they leave a little bit on the inside, but I like the look of this much better. I think it's cleaner. There's a little bit of a lip there, but you can actually suck that down into the wood, and then we can put some type of Loctite material on there, so that way those nuts don't back off, or you can use just lock nuts if you want. But that's what I'm going to go with. I'm not going to be using the screws, so we're going to change some of these around. All right, gear doors are done. Now again, those things are all pre-bent, so right now they're a little springy. They stick up just because of the way the hinges fit. But when the linkages are installed, they'll pull those down, and I feel pretty confident they'll be decent enough. So again, we're not hooking up any linkages, no linkages. And I can tell you guys from experience with sequence doors, hook up one thing at a time. Get your retracts. When I wire all this up, then I'll do all the retracts and doors, everything one at a time. We're going to get these to start working. And once the retracts work, then we're going to work on getting just the first series of linkage right here for the doors. Then we're going to get one hooked up. Then we're going to get the other hooked up. And we're going to make sure everything kind of works and fits and stops, because the last thing you want to do is have these doors close and then have this retract come down and break things because you don't have it hooked up right or sequenced right or something else. And the same thing with any digital servo. You'll smoke them pretty quick if you bury those things and start to bind them up and have them draw a lot of current. It doesn't take but a couple seconds to smoke one. Again, from experience, I've learned these things. So for now, we're kind of done with doors, sequence, and gear. Looks pretty neat. We've gotten pretty far. It's taken a while. All this stuff always does. So now we come down to missiles and drop tanks. And to be quite honest, I don't know. I know I talked about this in the unboxing. I don't know if I want missiles and drop tanks on my plane yet. So if you wanted to put them on, now's the time. And then you can put on all of these things to drop them. I don't understand how you're going to do drop tanks from out of the air and have fiberglass not smash. So I don't buy any of that. I don't think that's a great idea. If you want to have drop tanks on missiles, that's one thing, but so yeah. All right, we're going to weigh all these accessories. So I got the bucket on there, and we're going to tear the bucket. That piece, all of those pieces, all of those pieces. I got one more right there. Let's just throw them in for good measure. We're not putting that on. We're not putting that on. Just the tips. Sure, stuff it in there. All right, there you have it. So we have, and we are going to eliminate off this plane, 2.1 pounds with all of that stuff, minus, keep in mind, if you were to do bomb releases and wiring. So, all right, everybody, there you have it. That wraps up that portion of the assembly of the 87-inch Seagulls Model Corsair, available over at Gator-Rc, link down in the description below. Do me a favor, head on over there if you're interested in this model or aviation models, RC models altogether. Check them out at www.gator-rc.com. Kind of your one-stop hobby shop, wide variety of models. So we have everything from covered to uncovered, composite to fiberglass to wood, you name it. Top RC model, Maxford USA, Sebart, and as well, obviously, Seagulls models. So I'm Brendan. This is Just Plain Crazy. You're just plain crazy for always hanging out and watching. We appreciate every one of you. Smash that thumbs up button. It helps us out a lot. If you're going to hit this, make sure you give me 2 of those for sure. Shameless plug to like, share, subscribe, all that cool stuff. And don't forget to check us out over on the official Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok Just Plain Crazy pages. So with that being said, until the next episode, I wish you guys happy flights. Peace out.